Welcome to Progress with Portia, where we have real conversations to progress individuals and communities. I'm excited today. I have the one and only Professor Chaney with me. I met Professor Chaney at LSU when I was working on my doctoral program. I'm excited to have her here on my platform to share about her research and to talk about. She has several areas which we'll hear from her, but today we're going to talk about relationships. So, hello, Dr. Chaney. Thank you so much for being a part today.
Hello, Portia. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Yes, and I do want to make sure I just emphasize that the impact Dr. Chaney has just had on me. I have been a product of PWIs, so I have went to LSU for undergrad, master's, and when I was in the doctoral program. And Professor Chaney is actually the first Black female professor that I've had. Um, and that really made it, and actually she was not my teacher. I just was working with her, but I sat in on some of her courses. And just sitting in on a course and having an African American female professor who wasn't teaching African American studies or African American history, that began to impact me in such a major way, and it began to show me something that I didn't even know I needed. And just the way, like you said, just the ability to connect, to relate to someone who looked like you. I know they talk about representation matters, but you don't know what you're missing sometimes until you actually have a chance to experience it. And so I think it's such an amazing opportunity that she has to be a representation on at LSU, and wherever she's able to share her research, her studies, but to be an example for young Black women in that role. And so, Dr. Chaney, I just want to let you know, it just meant so much to me to sit in your class and see you work. And see you do the things you do, but also to have Black references sometimes. I think that was one of the biggest things is that I could relate to some of the references. It wasn't what you always use, it wasn't your only go to, but there were times that there were Black references. And that really brought the material alive or allowed me to connect in a different way that I hadn't had in my own experience as a student in a university. So I just wanted to tell you how powerful that was for me.
That means a lot to me, Portia. And, I'm one of the few African American professors, at LSU, like many of my colleagues at primarily white institutions. And you
Hmm.
realize how very needed we are in this space.
Yes.
So I've had individuals that have made comments like, why aren't you at an HBCU? And I absolutely love the HBCU experience. In fact, I received my BS degree in psychology from Southern University.
Awesome.
Right? So I got my BS degree from Southern in psychology, and then I went on to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. That's where I did my
Hmm.
master's and my doctorate work in human development and family studies. So it means so much to me to hear you really say that. Because oftentimes, as professors, people think that we hear this often, and we really don't. We don't.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, like when our students go off and do like wonderful things, like we hear from them after.
Yeah.
But it always, yeah, it really impresses upon me the importance of reaching out, especially to my students of color,
Yeah.
because I'm not the typical professor that they normally see within this space.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just can't even put into words, just seeing someone come in, of course, always being so professional, but being able to connect in a different way that I've never been able to connect with professors, and having someone who knew my name, and of course it was for, the reason our connection was definitely different. But to see the way you interacted with your students and the way you poured into them, the way you taught the class, yeah, it was just very powerful. So you mentioned some of your journey. Can you share a little bit about your research and what it is that you focus on?
Yes, yes. So I have actually been at LSU since 2006. So I came in on a tenure track position, assistant professor. In 2011, I became an associate professor with tenure. And let's see, it is now 2022. So I want to say, I think it was 2019 that I actually became a professor. So the
Wow.
following year, I secured an endowed professorship. So I'm
Wow.
the J. Franklin Vahe Endowed Professor
Awesome.
in Child and Family Studies. So, oh my goodness, when people kind of ask me, what is it that you do? I said, I research Black folks. And what I do is so fun. It is
Hmm.
so fun because it's under the umbrella of African American experiences. But under that, I look at things like the role of religion and spirituality for African Americans. So how does religion and spirituality affect so many areas of our lives, such as dating and mate selection?
Mm.
How does it affect parents, right? Individuals who are maybe part of two-parent homes, but especially those who are part of single-parent homes. I've also looked at emotional closeness and commitment narratives among
Mm.
Black, among dating, cohabiting, and Black married couples. So,
Wow.
how do they define emotional closeness?
Mm.
How do they experience emotional closeness? How do they define commitment? How do they experience commitment? So I'm also looking at that. In fact, I am working on a book that looks at the characteristics of strong Black marriages.
Oh,
And
wow.
these Black couples have actually been married for an average of 30 years.
Hmm.
I would say within the past like 7 to 8 years, my work has kind of ventured in a sociological kind of dimension where I'm really
Okay.
looking at the historical relate and contemporary relationship between African Americans and the police. Right?
Okay.
We have seen so many instances. Eric Garner, right?
Mm.
Sean Bell, Alton Sterling, Philander Castile, George Floyd, Dante Wright,
Hmm.
Breonna Taylor, countless numbers of African Americans, unarmed African Americans that have actually died at the hands of police.
Mm.
So I actually just published a book, I would say in 2019, with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Ray Robertson. In fact, here is the book.
Oh, awesome.
Police use of excessive force against African Americans, historical antecedents, and community perception. So
Wow. Okay.
this is actually one of the books that we plan to publish. Another one that where we are currently in the process of really talking about, kind of fleshing out our ideas, our methodology, is looking at the perspectives of Black individuals in law enforcement.
Okay.
So no one has actually looked at this,
Mm.
this area of this particular demographic. So we're really excited about that.
Awesome. Well, that's a lot of amazing topics.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I want to talk about this, that,
Yeah. Oh my
making notes.
I didn't even mention, like, I'm an associate editor for the Journal of Hip Hop Studies. Like, so
Okay.
I look at how masculinity and femininity is discussed in hip hop, motherhood and fatherhood, black male female relationships are discussed in hip hop. So it's when I say it's a lot of fun stuff, it is really a lot of fun stuff.
Well, I know right now somebody is inspired to consider maybe getting their doctorate who maybe didn't consider it before. Because, sometimes when we think about school and I hear people talk about going back, they think about the challenges they had in undergrad or maybe masters. And, my experience, even though I had to step away from the program due to personal reasons, my experience in the program is the way that the doctoral program is set up. It's such a different experience than undergrad and master's program. And that I think there, are more people who might actually really enjoy and actually excel in those programs that don't realize it, because they do have those deeper questions. They do want to know, and maybe, like I said, there's so much they can contribute to the research. And we do need more African Americans who are studying us, that we are the population that they are looking at, that we're asking the questions, and someone who is a part of us to know the questions to ask and the things that matter, and how to ask the questions and the perspective in which you look at the situation. So I know just hearing that, because I've kind of made up my mind, I'm not going back, but just hearing you talk about it, I'm like, I just really love the experience and the research and hearing and talking about it. And even if I never go back in that capacity, it was such a wonderful experience for me. And I definitely think, like I said, there's so many people who may not realize that they could actually excel in research and writing, and they may not be as burdened down as they thought they like as undergrad as their undergrad experience. And that usually if you're older and you're in a different
Yes.
place, you're not in the same season you were then.
And that is an excellent point, Portia, in terms of you cannot compare your undergraduate experience to the graduate experience.
Mm-mm.
It is diametrically different, right?
Right.
So like an undergrad, I mean, of course, like you're working in whatever particular discipline you're actually getting your degree in, right? You're having to take oftentimes classes that don't necessarily relate to that degree.
Right.
Right? So like you might be taking French, all right, or you might be taking kinesiology, right?
Right.
Nothing to do with your particular degree, or maybe history, right? Things that a lot of students are generally not as interested in. Whereas
Right.
in graduate school, it is definitely very tailored to your interest. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Every class that you take will in some way advance your area of research.
Right.
So I always encourage my students to write a master's thesis, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of programs are requiring students to either do a testing or to write. And a lot
Right.
of students like, I would rather do 10 tests than write one master's thesis. And I know a lot of where that comes is because you're not used to writing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like anything else, like the more accustomed that you become to writing, the better you become at it, right? Like
Yeah.
anything else, like if you're just you're a novice, with cooking, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be as seasoned as someone that's been doing this for 20 years.
Right.
But it's important to really start somewhere, right? And the more you write, the better you become at writing, and you get to this stage where you can even critique your own writing with a certain clarity, but it's because
Right.
you've done it very, very often. So I would encourage anyone that is thinking about it to really pursue it,
Mm-hmm.
to pursue graduate studies. If you know someone personally, reach
Mm-hmm.
out to that person, right? Ask
Right.
them what is their experience. Um, you know, and also, the reason why I think it's important, especially if it's a program that you actually are very interested in, it becomes all that more important to talk
Mm-hmm.
with graduate students that are in that department.
Yeah.
They can tell you about the experience in their department, which might be very, very different
Right.
from another graduate program at the same university.
Right.
So I think that's very, very important. I think being aware of the rigors that are required in graduate
Mm-hmm.
school, I think is really important. Seeing the end goal, I think, is
Right.
very, very important, because there are going to be some days you're like, oh my goodness, am I going to get through all of these readings? Or, this reading isn't really flowing to the
Right.
extent that I wish that it was flowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to stick with it, stick to it, and once you have that degree, you won't even think about all of the challenges that you went through to get it.